Hi everybody, welcome to the channel. Thank you for joining in. You're always welcome, always appreciated. I just want to do another video podcast. Sorry, I'm used to saying the word video. Podcast on this talk. Now, this one is going to be about unification matches. Now, there's been a few over time, but I'm going to come down to not the top 5, but 5 of them and one honorable mention. So the honorable mention is the Unified Tag Team titles. The Clones, Carlito and Primo, they defeated John Morrison and The Miz at WrestleMania 25, which was 2009, and they combined the Raw and SmackDown. This is when they had the brand split, and they stopped kind of the brand split for a while. Of course, it all happened again, but yeah, so this one is just an honorable mention, the Unified Tag Team titles. Now, number 5, TNA Impact World Title versus the GFW World Title. Alberto El Patron was representing GFW versus Lashley, who is also known as Bobby Lashley, by the way, Impact Wrestling Champion, and this was at Slammiversary 2017. What happened was Jeff Jarrett started to create a new company called GFW, but something didn't quite click, it just didn't respond well, and basically it got unified back on the Impact Wrestling again, and GSW basically I think closed down. I think I can't remember if he sold it on the Impact, and they just kind of merged it together. It was like a weird merge that happened at one point. But again, it's just one of those unification matches that happened in history, so it gets a mention here on this podcast. Now, number 4. The WWE title versus the world title. Now, this world title is the last of the WCW World Championship Wrestling history. This title was from that era, this world title, which was unified with the WWE title. So it's John Cena versus Randy Orton, surprise, surprise, December 2013 TLC pay-per-view, and this is where they unified that part of history with the WWE history, and it became solidified. It was like, this history is now done, it's finished, we're now onto a new era. Once I understood that, I kind of get it. It needed to move on from history because a lot of the new fans wouldn't understand WCW anymore, so you need to create a new era sort of thing. So I think that WCW title kind of went past its prime now with a lot of the fans, because the older fans would know it, but not the younger ones. So I think we just need to move away from that old history. If you're not going to continue that lineage, then there's no point in having that belt. If you're not going to show, okay, Ric Flair had this belt, Hardy Wade had the belt, blah blah blah, there's no point to it anymore. So I think that realistically, yeah, the purpose of the world title didn't mean anything anymore by 2013. It was watered down, weighted down, and it needed to retire for something fresh to happen. Kind of, but didn't. Okay, now, number 3. The Intercontinental Champion, Rob Van Dam versus the Hardcore title, Tommy Dreamer. Now, this happened around 2002 Raw. I forgot to write the date down. This is when Eric Bischoff just started taking over as the Raw GM, and he didn't want the Hardcore title. He didn't want anything associated with ECW, Extreme Violence, blah blah blah. So Tommy Dreamer and RVD had a match, and they unified the titles. If I remember right, RVD won, and it was one of those things that happened. It was a bit of a letdown to see the Hardcore title go, but again, there wasn't really that many guys that were still doing the hardcore style, like Steven Richards, Raven, all that. Them guys started to fizzle out a little bit. So again, it's a new era, and I think the hardcore kind of won its course. They could have maybe changed it and put a different belt there, like the TV title or something, as a mid-card belt. But the hardcore title had its run for a couple of years, and it did okay for what it was. Now, number 2, the Undisputed Championship. WWF, WCW. Chris Jericho, you know the story, he beat Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock at Vengeance 2001, both in the same night. Chris Jericho becomes the Undisputed Champion, and by WrestleMania 18, drops the belt to Triple H. A transitional champion was what he was at that time. A transitional champion. Not much more I can say about that. I'm not doing the whole thing about the invasion. No, I'm not doing it. No. Okay, number 2. I'm sorry, that was number 2. And now on to the final one. This is the big one. This is not WWE or TNA. Just so you know. This is New Japan Pro Wrestling. The J Crown. If you never heard of the J Crown, go back in the history and look at this J Crown, because if you were that J Crown champion, you have like the biggest responsibility. This was 8 different titles from different promotions combined together as one champion across the junior heavyweight division. You had Michinoshi Pro Wrestling, New Japan Pro Wrestling, the National Wrestling Alliance NWA, CMLL Lucha Libre Mexico. You had the UWA, which is kind of like another part of Michinoshi Pro. You had Wrestling Association R, which is known as WAR, World Wrestling Association, WWWA, World Wrestling Federation, when they kind of had like a light heavyweight championship, and these belts was in the tournament, and they combined together as a one true champion of that division, and we've never seen that again happen, I don't think, to my knowledge, but that was like the ultimate unification matchup in wrestling history. If you never heard of the New Japan Pro Wrestling J Crown, go back and watch that tournament, watch those matches, and you see what it was like when you had different promotions coming together. Eventually it became 8-7 because the WWF wanted their belt back at one point, so they kind of had to give it back to them. But this will show you how much people was working together and was willing to share things. So it's a shame that it didn't last longer than what it did. But again, you know, New Japan Pro Wrestling J Crown is the #1 unification match in wrestling history. If you got any other comments about unification matches from indie promotions, let me know in the comments below or on the website, vvpwrestling.com, stands for Vintage versus Present Wrestling. Also check out the YouTube channel as well, and you should be able to find a Facebook page as well, so follow there as well. Thank you all again for tuning into the podcast, and hope you all have a great weekend. God bless you all.